Hi everyone. Now then, I thought it was time for a change. Yes. Do you notice anything different? Well, of course you do. I've got a new watch strap. Way! Hi everyone. Yes, a little bit different today because, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have to wait and see. Now then, quick joke to start you off, seeing as I'm dressed like this. Why did the teacher wear sunglasses? Any ideas? Come on. It's because the students were too bright. Way! I think I'll take these sunglasses off. It's not quite that. That's better. So now you can see me and I can see you. Hi everyone. Yeah, hey, what do you think about the hair? Like it? Of course you do. And a nice little old-fashioned hat there. Now, here's another of my world-famous jokes for you. Now, what do the guards at Buckingham Palace, a nappy, and my terrible jokes all have in common? Any ideas? Yes, they all need changing. Now then, ladies and gentlemen, our video today is all about one of our key words, change. It's all about change. Because what we are looking at today, ladies and gentlemen, is something called the Renaissance. Do you know what that word means? Well, actually, it's a French word, and it means rebirth. So, what we are talking about is a time in history when there was a rebirth of interest in learning, discovering, finding things out, reading books. That's only part of it. Because at this time in history, it wasn't just a rebirth in following the old books, although the works of Galen and Hippocrates were still being used. No, the thing that was different in the Renaissance, ladies and gentlemen, is that people said, well, let's not just follow old traditional ideas. Let's do a bit of thinking for ourselves. Let's see if we can come up with some answers ourselves. The Renaissance, rebirth. Now, what sort of time span are we looking at? Roughly about 1500 to about 1700, roughly those 200 years. Historians say that was the Renaissance. Why? Why was there this big change from medieval times, where people tended to still traditionally follow the old Greek and Roman ideas? What was happening in the Renaissance? Well, here's 4 or 5 things for you to try and think about. First of all, people started to think for themselves, not just follow the old ideas. There was a man called Paracelsus, an expert in medicine, and he was a lecturer, like a professor at a university. And when he was lecturing in his Swiss university in Basel in the 1520s, at the start of his lecture, he did something absolutely incredible. Do you know what it was? Well, he certainly got his students' attention because before he started to speak, he burnt Galen's books. Imagine that. Galen, whose ideas had been followed for more than 1,000 years. And here's the new lecturer burning the books. What message is he sending to his students? That's right. Don't just follow old ideas. Find things out for yourselves. And he was very critical of the old books. There was an Arab doctor called Avicenna. I mentioned him in some of the medieval videos. Now, his books, his ideas had been followed for many, many years, many hundreds of years. Paracelsus says to the students, Avicenna, he says, he's a kitchen master, almost like some sort of cook. He called Galen a liar and a fake. Imagine that message. Don't just follow the old ideas. Think for yourselves. That's the first thing. Paracelsus, a strong message. Secondly, as I've tried to explain before, The Catholic Church was very, very powerful. The Catholic Church was very, very influential. As we moved into the 1500s, though, we get something called the Reformation. A group of people challenge the Catholic Church. They protest against the Catholic Church. That's why they were called Protestants or Protestants. And as a result of the Reformation, in some people's eyes, the power, the influence, the importance of the Catholic Church was decreasing. And maybe some people would say, no, I'm not going to listen to the Catholic Church. I'm going to try and work things out for myself. So the decline of the power of the church affects the Renaissance. Factor 3, technology. Technology begins to improve during the Renaissance. Now, the first man, Johannes Gutenberg, 1450s, 1454, Johannes Gutenberg invents the printing press. Why would that be so important? Well, of course, before his discovery, people had to copy out books by hand. It was very slow and laborious and took a long, long time. The printing press meant that books could be printed far, far quicker, more books which could then be distributed so ideas could spread. Gutenberg started in Europe. Caxton gets the first printing press going here in Britain in the 1470s. The printing press improves technology. People can share ideas. Books were easier to make. Technology. Other examples of technology. 1600s, man called Chamberlain. He invents the forceps, which are still used today for certain things. For example, when babies are born and it's going a little bit wrong and they use forceps. A man called Van Leeuwenhoek, don't worry about the spelling of that. In the 1670s, he's developing lenses to use in microscopes, and he's beginning to see things through the lens of the microscope. Now, we know now that they were germs. He didn't know that then, but the technology is improving. Okay? So technology is part of the answer as to why change happened during the Renaissance. Now, if people are trying to work things out and find out new things, a classic example of that in the Renaissance was the voyages of discovery. Men were sailing out to different parts of the world. You've got to remember, in medieval times, many people thought that the earth was flat. And then if you sailed too far, you would literally fall off the edge. That's what they believed, because they didn't have the knowledge. Now, in the Renaissance, scientists begin to challenge this and disprove it. A man called Copernicus, a Polish scientist, he proves for the first time that the Earth goes round the sun or orbits the sun. This was a challenge to the church, because in the church's eyes, God had created the Earth, so the Earth was the center and everything went round the Earth. Copernicus is saying, no, that's not true. My scientific work, research, proves that the Earth orbits the sun. A man called Galileo develops this and uses the telescope technology to prove again Copernicus's work. And Galileo upset the Catholic Church so much that they put him in prison. But people were challenging. Science was getting better. And when these people, like, for example, Christopher Columbus, sailed 1492, he's trying to find a new trade route to India, but goes totally the wrong way and discovers the West Indies and then America. Now, we know that the Vikings had been in America centuries before, but Columbus gets the credit in history for discovering America, 1492. He sailed with 3 ships, but he found it really difficult to get crew for the ships. Why? Because they thought they were going to fall off the edge of the world. But when they started to return from these voyages, people say, oh, maybe that's not right. Also, when they returned from the voyages with plants and herbs, many of these plants and herbs that they brought back with them were very useful for medicine. An example of that is quinine, which comes from the bark of a tree, which we can still use today as a treatment for malaria, terrible disease. So the voyages of discovery help this idea of change. Other individuals, great men like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, they do very accurate drawings of the body. It's a time when individuals are saying, let's move forward, let's make progress, let's change things. Science begins to really start here. And here in Britain, 1660, the Royal Society is set up. Now, it's all about science. It's still going today. It's a very, very important society. Now, when it was set up, 1660, its motto was this, in Latin, nullius in verba. What does that mean in English? Take no one's word for it. In other words, find things out yourself. Ask questions. And in 1665, 5 years after the Royal Society was set up, a man called Robert Hooke, again another very famous scientist, they publish a book called Micrographia. And in it are the first drawings of a flea which had been examined under the microscope. Change was coming in the Renaissance. There was still some examples of continuity, and I'll deal with that in a later video. But, as the great Bob Dylan once sang, for the times they are a-changing. The 1500s, the 1600s, times were changing. Now, what impact would that have on medicine? Well, the first person we're going to have a look at is a man called Andreas Vesalius. What did he do which helped medicine in the Renaissance? Any ideas? Well, you'll have to wait for the next video. But here's a little clue as to what he did. It's another of my famous jokes. I know, you're pleased to hear that. Of course you are. Here it is. Why don't skeletons fight each other? Because they don't have the guts. Hooray! Now that's a terrible joke, but it's a clue to what Vesalius did. And what he did, I'll tell you in the next video. There's the introduction to the Renaissance, a very important part of medical history. Hope it's been useful. Speak to you soon. All the best.